Nice.
Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody.
What's good? What's popping?
How are you all feeling? It is great to be with you on another marvelous Monday. I was almost gonna go wonderful and then magical.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were gonna give away that we don't record this on Wednesdays.
No,
Podcast magic.
They know now. Podcast magic. We do this shit on Monday, but it's good that everybody's here with us. We're excited everybody's here with us.
True.
Marcus, how are you all feeling, sir?
Well, I'm here. I'm Doug made us watch a movie, and we are here to dissect it.
No. I didn't make us watch this.
Who made us watch this movie?
Brian made us watch this.
Brian Roush. We love you, Brian, but god damn it.
Because Brian, he's like, hey, I know I'm out and I can't be there because I'm hanging out with my cool new baby. But you guys should watch this movie and break it down. And then before Spider-Man No Way Home comes out, and we were like, we should. That's not a bad idea. So we'll give a little bit more background when we get there. But Marcus, we have a game of Catch That Quotable to get into. There you go. Awesome. Thanks for dropping that in there. So we got Catch That Quotable to get into. And sir, you are still in charge of the board. That is currently the leaderboard where we're at. So Brian is probably, if I get one right today, Brian's going to finish in third place just by default.
If you get one right today, that's all right.
Just by default. Yep. Yeah, and that's disappointing for him because he had a good season. It's
did have a good season.
You hate to tear an ACL and be put on the bench.
Oh yeah, but that's okay. Doug Wagner just found, he just took it. He did what you're supposed to do. Next man up. When you go down, the next number gets called. You just do what you're supposed to.
Exactly how that works. That's exactly how that works. Yeah. But sir, you are in charge of the leaderboard, and so I am curious. Who would you like to go first? Would you like me to go first, or would you like to go first?
You can go first.
All righty.
You can go first.
All right. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. I wasn't there to conduct. Any fucking moron can wave his arms and keep people in tempo. I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity.
Okay.
All right. You want me to read it one more time?
Yeah, read it one more time.
I wasn't there to conduct. Any fucking moron can wave his arms and keep people in tempo. I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity.
Okay. There's one movie that obviously comes to mind when I saw this quote. Okay. I don't know what else it could be. That has this energy about band and directing and cussing somebody out.
Yep.
I kind of want to just go for it without the hint.
Okay. All right. Bold strategy.
I know, but I feel like it's not the movie that I think it is. So that's got me on edge a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go for it without a hint.
Okay.
And I think this is Whiplash.
Marcus, this is Whiplash. Okay, good guess. Good way to trust your gut. Good work.
Thank you.
Good work.
J. Jonah Jameson. I feel like that's a Spider-Man tie.
Man.
That's kind of what Doug's hit was at.
Have you figured out my formula?
I think I may have.
I feel exposed.
I think I got it down to a science.
I think you do. You pick the movie, you find one of the actors in the top 6, and you just say, it's going to be that one. Do I know that man's or that woman's body of work?
Yeah.
And I just go with it. Yeah. And you got it.
That's the hard part, though. It's like, it's the top 6, so it could be anybody. So that's where it fucks you up at. Is like that literally can be anybody.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, okay. That's a very good point. Good guess. Good guess, sir.
I feel the Whiplash energy in there.
I'm glad you.
Was hectic, but
the movie was a lot, and I don't know if you ever have this experience with movies, but like when I see an actor who acts different than my understanding of him as an actor, it fucks me up. So when I saw him in Whiplash, I had seen him as like the dad in Juno, and he was in Spider-Man, and I was like, okay, a movie with J.K. Simmons. Okay, I can deal with that. And then he starts like screaming at people, and I was like,
flips. Complete 180, but I think it goes
this.
to show his range.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which obviously is what he wanted to do. So, you know, they casted that perfectly. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I love that. That movie's just really good all around. So, but what do you have, sir?
All right, here we go. Everybody ready?
Oh yeah.
This is a conversation between two people. I ain't a doubter, but I am a questioner. What's the difference? A questioner wants the truth. A doubter wants to be told there ain't no such thing.
Ooh.
One more time. I ain't a doubter, but I am a questioner. What's the difference? A questioner wants the truth. A doubter wants to be told there ain't no such thing.
Okay. I could go two ways with this because I feel like it's either a conspiracy spy movie.
Oh, okay.
Where people are having a conversation and someone's basically saying how they're open to the idea of a conspiracy theory or their way of the world not being viewed. Or it is a sport movie and someone is it's a team sport movie like baseball or football or something like that. And they are being like motivated with this. It's an exchange between like top two players, the two protagonists being. So that's where I was headed. But I need the hint to kind of figure out which guess I want to give.
Okay. So your hint is going to be black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Okay. So this podcast is the hint. Got it. Now black and white could either be.
With that information, what you will.
I could take it as a black and white movie like everybody does with this podcast, or I could go the tongue out the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Or Oreo.
Or an Oreo. Could do that too. Marcus, I am going to guess, is this Enemy of the State?
It is not, but that is a really good guess. Is Tommy Lee Jones an Enemy of the State?
No, that is it's Will Smith. Let me look up the other guy quick.
I can't remember who the bad guy, who the other guy in that movie.
Yeah, it's a very Tommy Lee Jones. No, it's a very Tommy Lee Jones. It was 1998. It's a very like Tommy Lee Jones-esque kind of role.
Yeah.
But it is Gene Hackman.
It's Gene fucking Hackman.
Yep,
that's exactly who it is.
Yep.
Yeah. This is not that movie, but I think that's a great guess. This is actually The Sunset Limited, with Samuel Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones. Samuel Jackson plays Mr. Black. Tommy Lee Jones plays Mr. White. It's based on a play.
Yeah, that's a good play. I like that play.
It's heavy.
It's on HBO Max. It's on HBO Max if you want to watch it.
I recommend everybody go watch that shit.
They absolutely should. And you're not lying. It is very heavy.
It's heavy. It's like if you're looking for something light to watch, it's literally a two-person show. It's in this case, it's a two-man show.
And
one setting, one scene.
Yep, one setting. Yep.
And it's no background. You get dropped in the middle of a conversation and they tell you, okay, go. And you're just like, holy shit. And it's a good conversation. I think it sparks a lot of great conversation from it. But ever since I saw that movie, I think I've watched it 3 times. Yeah, specifically really their version. It's really, really good.
Yeah. I kind of want to see the play.
I do too. I would love to see how they go about doing that play. Is it the same, the energy? Because like movies like Fences, when you look at Fences on the TV, on the movie screen, it hits completely different as opposed to the play with James Earl Jones. And it's like, okay, like they're giving this character 2 different tones and 2 different types of energy, and it's really interesting. But that's the one thing I like about when you do a play to a movie and a movie to a play.
Yes. The different elements that can be brought to it.
And the environment you're in also makes a difference too.
Yeah. We went to one of the USD plays, so shout out to USD Theater. Nice. But Brittany and I went a couple of weeks ago, and we saw the play The Lion in Winter.
Oh, I heard about that one.
And that's really good, actually. It's really, really good. But we did some digging, and there was actually a movie version of it that came out in like 1948 that has like, it was Anthony Hopkins's like first role on screen. because the dude is like 88 years old. And then it also has like Peter O'Toole, who is who's an incredible actor. So that was also a good one. But now that I've seen the play, I kind of want to see that version of the movie too. So
that'll be I feel like anytime I see a good, I don't know, if I see a good play or a good movie that's a play adaptation, it makes me want to see one or the other, or like vice versa. Like I either want to go see the movie or I want to go see the play.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Except like Rant, I don't know. Like that's a deeper discussion. I think I wish Brian was here for it too.
Yeah,
I feel like he could add
because I could pop off on my issue with musicals as movies.
Well, I mean, what is it? Like, what is it?
There's something about. Here's what it is for me. When I'm in a theater and I'm in a seat and I am in the same room as the person singing the song, it doesn't feel like I'm listening, I'm just listening to music. It feels such a bigger part of the story. But when I'm watching a movie, I know that they did like back recording, and I know that that this may have been piped in, that they weren't filming it and singing it. My brain disconnects and I start overthinking how it's there. So I disconnect a little bit more. And so that's why it's harder for me to connect than when I'm in a theater. Like when I'm in a theater, musicals are very much my shit. When I was in college, I took an ex-girlfriend to the show Wicked in Chicago. That was really, really, really good. Like that was a good show. I've seen other musicals in theaters that are really, really good, but I never question it. I usually walk away with like chills, like feeling really good about it. But movies, I have a hard time getting into them. I don't know what it is.
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, it's a fair analysis of how, like your mind works and breaks down like the effort and the performance part of theater. Because that's the other thing. Like when you're watching somebody perform in theater, in the back of your mind, you know, like, ooh, they could fuck this up because this is live. You know what I mean? But like a movie is like, how many takes did you have? You're really just kind of going over it. It doesn't take, yes, the song is familiar, but like, it's not like watching somebody like me and my parents, we used to watch like Medea plays all the time. So like all the Medea plays that they're out, we've probably seen all of them leading up to his past like 5 when we were just like, all right, that's enough of that. But even we would skip like the musical portions when we're at the house and just watch the rest of the play unless we really, really like the song. But when we look at Dreamgirls, we are watching Dreamgirls for the songs. We don't skip a song. We go through every song on there. But if it's Medea, we don't really like, we didn't really listen to that singing and really going through that. And so I don't know. It's just that's just an interesting topic I think we should come back to when it comes to the environment of where you watch something. And what stakes is there, because you go to a play production, you're sitting there, like what you're in for. You know that there's going to be intermission, but until you get there, there's a certain respect, there's a certain ambiance to watching. And the same, I think, with the movie theater too. But it's about how you take that in.
And I will say this too, that is not to take away from like movie actors who do musicals to say like, oh, they don't have the talent to risk it like on a theater, theater stage. Because I remember I saw the Chicago musical in, I think it was like my ninth grade for me that came out, and Richard Gere sang on that. And so did Renee Zellweger. And I remember like listening to that being like, man, these guys got chops, and they can really, really sing. But still, it's not a movie that I actively revisit. But I'm impressed with the song and I'm impressed with their ability. But it's just, again, it's I think that does have something to do with the risk and that group participation in that endeavor in a theater house versus on a screen.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, the movie we saw this week is neither a musical nor
it is not. It's in fact might be the complete opposite.
Well, although there are musical interludes, whether you want them or not, there are musical interludes in this movie.
Jazzy undertones.
Jazzy undertones. If you thought smooth jazz was dead in 2006, it's not. So Marcus, this week, Brian recommended, I'm still going to pin it on him. Brian recommended that we watch Spider-Man 3.
He did.
Which is Tobey Maguire, which capped off his end run in that role to sort of prepare ourselves because we're 2 weeks away from No Way Home.
We are.
Marcus, I would love it before I give you everybody a rundown of fast facts, I would really love to hear your barbershop summary of Spider-Man 3 for those maybe who have not seen it or even those who have. So what do you got, sir?
That's really interesting. Okay, so what had happened is you have a 40-year-old pretending to be a 22-year-old, and everybody has the personality of a plank of wood. Okay, so you have Spider-Man, who is in his third trilogy, and finally, everybody loves Spidey. Although he saved the city on more than one occasion, New York finally decides we love Spider-Man. All right, so in this, Spider-Man is kind of feeling himself. Mary Jane is not really feeling that. She's struggling in her singing career, and she's being told that she sucks, and she gets fired. Harry is still dealing with the death of his father and still got beef with Peter, but then loses his memory because he gets hit by, he gets hanglined by Spider-Man and the Spiderweb. And not to mention, he gets a bomb thrown at him, too. So he's being physically abused by your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who ain't so goddamn friendly. So then you have an alien symbiote and a man made of sand. All right. So all of these people are coming together in this movie. Peter finds out that the guy who's made of sand is really the one who killed his uncle, and the other guy got away with it. You know what I mean? So basically, there you go. Who Peter essentially killed in the first movie. He just backed him into a window. So that's like handless murder, but whatever, you call that what you want. So then he gets mad at that because the killer is still on the loose. The symbiote is coming down and it feeds off Peter's anger, and that Peter is feeling himself, and then he kisses Gwen Stacy and does all this stupid ass shit, and he's got to fight Eddie Brock for a seat at the table at the fucking at the Daily Bugle. So all of these emotions are high. It is like we're dealing with a bunch of damn teenagers, and when everybody is grown as hell. Okay, so he finds his black suit. The black suit it gives him extra strength, but it also takes his anger to a whole nother level, okay? Which involves a lot of crotch popping and 90s and 70s jazz undertones whenever
and the most insane dance moves you've ever seen in your life.
It's ridiculous. I have no idea. And a black popping collar, which everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's the thing. So Harry loses his memory, but then he gets his memory back, turns Mary Jane against Peter, tells Peter I'm in love with her. She tells him, I don't love you anymore, blah, 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 blah. Peter goes to this whole thing where he just wants to be a rebel and a badass. And then you have the Sandman, who's trying to do the right thing for his daughter, who probably has the most wholesome storyline in this thing, but whatever. And for some reason gets sand powers, but I'll get to that later. That's one of my problems with this thing. And so they all have to fight each other. He has to overcome with Harry. He also has got to overcome his thing that he did with Mary Jane. And he's also, Aunt May is also here randomly, but she ain't really got a part to play. She just come in to drop wisdom and then leave. I guess she was too old at that point. And that's kind of what this movie is surrounded around.
Yeah. And if it sounds like a mess, it's because it is one. It is just all over the place. And I have some interesting backstory into why it is such a mess that I'll kind of get into a little bit later. But I did want to give people some fast facts of this particular movie. So this movie came out in 2007, April 16th, 2007. No, sorry, May 4th, 2007 is when it came out. It was directed by Sam Raimi. The screenplay was written by Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, and Alvin Sargent. It was starring Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man Peter Parker, Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, James Franco plays Harry Osborn, Thomas Hayden Church plays Sandman, Topher Grace plays Eddie Brock Jr. / Venom. I have a lot of problems with that. Bryce Dallas Howard plays what's her name? Gwen Stacy. James Cromwell plays Gwen Stacy's dad.
Commissioner.
Yep, the commissioner. Rosemary Harris reprises her role as Aunt May, and J.K. Simmons comes in and plays the hell out of J. Jonah Jameson. This movie had a budget of around $350 million, give or take. And it made $894.9 million at the box office.
Of course it did.
So
a success.
I mean
on the books.
A financial success.
Yes.
I don't know. It feels weird to call this a success with all of the weird script issues. So, but Marcus, let's just jump into it. So here's where I want us to start, because this is a movie that has been out for the better part of over 18, almost over a decade. So I do want us to chat about when we first saw this. So I remember going to this movie in the theater Marcus, when did you first see this movie?
I believe I saw this in the theater. So this was, and the only reason I remember is because I vividly remember the opening credits with the web and the memories in the web flashback. I remember watching it. So I definitely saw this in the theater.
Yeah, I did too. I remember 2007, I would have been in college, so I probably worked at the theater at that time, and we probably watched it either, fun fact is that if you work at a theater that doesn't have a digital, they have to put it all on reels. So a lot of times they'll get together the night before it is aired to come out, and they'll screen a movie to make sure that it's cut correctly. So which is a lot of fun. Yeah, and I remember that's how we watched a lot of things. Was somebody would assemble the movie, and then we'd get together and watch it as a staff. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But yes, I remember seeing it in the theater. And Marcus, I had some very specific problems with this when I first saw it.
Okay.
I remember I didn't like it, but I didn't it's kind of interesting because spoiler alert.
Okay, wait. Before you get there.
Yes.
I wanna kind of let's flash back a little bit more.
Okay.
This is Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what other. We're going by the rules of thirds here. We know trilogies exist, and we know movies automatically get trilogies. If you get 2, you're bound to get 3. Was kind of how it worked, right? And we knew after the success of Spider-Man 1 and 2, which Spider-Man 2 is, I think you could craft that as one of the more perfect superhero movies. It was just done extremely well with a great cast and a great storyline.
One of my top favorite superhero movies of all time.
I will agree with you. I think it's up there. But going into Spider-Man 3, what other third movies did we see? Now I'm trying to think, like X-Men. Was X-Men 3 out by then?
That's a good question.
Trying to see what else is there. Maybe I'll look that up while you explain.
When did
this come out? 2007?
2000. X-Men: The Last Stand came out in 2006.
Okay.
So it would have come out the year before this came out. So that would have been the next set of like trilogies that we really saw. So, and I think there are moments specifically with the soundtrack where I heard a lot of similarity between the X-Men soundtrack and the Spider-Man 3 soundtrack in moments. Like I feel like they still had that theme that they played throughout that but there were moments that were X-Men up a little bit.
That's interesting.
To give our listeners a little bit of context, so there were a lot of like what I would also call like big movies at the time that came out during 2007 that are sort of notable and kind of fall into that same realm of like being thirds. So Rush Hour 3 came out in 2007. It came out August 10th, 2007. Live Free or Die Hard came out June 27th. National Treasure Book of Secrets came out in 2007. Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer came out in 2007. Ocean's 13 came out in 2007. So there were a lot of like movies that Dreamgirls came out in 2007. There were a lot of and we had seen studios invest in longer series of movies with Saw 4 came out at that time, so they had done previously 3 to that. So there was a lot of things that came out. Spider-Man 3 is the top box office film of that time.
Not surprised.
Of your top 10, you have Spider-Man 3, Shrek the Third, Transformers, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. So there's 2 other trilogies right there, Marcus. Shrek the Third and then Pirates of the Caribbean. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, The Bourne Ultimatum, 300, Ratatouille, I Am Legend, and The Simpsons movie all came out in 2007, and several of those fall into that trilogy category.
That is very okay. So here's what I'm saying, and I want you to get into your memory. I don't want you to forget.
I won't.
It seemed like people were always kind of talking about superhero movies nowadays, right?
Yeah.
If you look at 2006, 2007, superhero movies, you have Ghost Rider, you have a movie literally called Superhero, Hellboy, TMNT when they tried to reboot it, not as a live action movie. And so it's like going into Spider-Man 3, we knew Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 were good. We knew
they were
Raimi
awesome.
had figured this shit out, and he had this shit down to a science. I vividly remember the soundtrack in Spider-Man 1. And if you look at Spider-Man 1, the way that they tell that story, that is over the span of what feels like a year in that movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They go all the way to Thanksgiving. So looking at this, what was the mindset going into this, Doug, for you? What were you thinking, or what were you expecting in this third movie?
I was really excited to see a continuation of the story. I was really interested to see how it all played out. I think the other thing to keep in mind that's important context-wise is this is where my like interest in comic book and comic book movies probably started, because
off of what?
Really the people I worked with at the movie theater, to be honest with you, because I had a lot of people that would read graphic novels and comics. And I remember one of our managers, when we would work, he brought a copy of The Watchmen to the theater, and he read that. And I remember thumbing through it and looking at it and being like, this is a comic book, because it's a graphic novel, so it flows a lot differently than some other things. And I remember reading through it and being like, wow, that's really good. And I also remember just we talked a lot more about it, so I kind of pulled off of their energy a little bit and got into it with 1 and 2. I think the other thing is like 1 and 2, specifically Spider-Man 1. I mean, Peter's a high schooler, and I was in high school when it came out, so I think there was a connection point for me that was a little bit clearer, and the line from me to Peter felt a little bit more natural. I was a nerd, he was a nerd. Like, he was trying to get into a popular group of friends and get the girl to notice him, very much where my shit was at, like when I was in high school. So I think there's a thread that goes throughout that makes sense and it tracks. For me anyway. So it's a little bit different, but that's how I initially connected to it. Did I ever think in 2007 we would be at the level we are now with comic book movies? Never in a million years. What did I think that was going to be a thing? And I think Spider-Man 3 what made me put that in so much doubt, because it was such a shit show that I remember leaving it going, there's no way they can turn this into a thing. Like, there's no way they can turn this into a thing. But
that's interesting.
Man, I would be eating some crow if I were ever on the record for that now, but I remember that being kind of where I was at when I initially saw this movie. How about yourself?
I like it. For me going into Spider-Man 3, I had seen all the Spider-Mans in theater, had all the action figures. And so I didn't know much about Spider-Man. So the idea that, and it, just to let you know where my head was at, the idea that his webbing came out of his body made sense to me, right? So I never was the one that was like, well, that's not comic accurate. I'm not going to pretend like I was always just like in the know. A lot of my personal comic book experience comes from watching these movies, X-Men 3, Spider-Man, whatever the case may be. Outside of Superman, I watched the Christopher Reeve version first, and then got into comic books. So when it came to this movie, and then looking at the 90s, the Amazing Spider-Man in the 90s, and realizing how different the stories are later on down the road, this was my introduction into who Spider-Man was. Tobey Maguire was my initial introduction into the character Spider-Man for the most part. Although there was all these renditions and all these different types of Spider-Man, and now, Jesus Christ, the Spider-Verse is overflowing.
Very real.
Like, it's very, very, very real. So going into this, I had the Spider-Man game. I had Spider-Man 1 where you could just swing. There was no ground. All you had to do was just swing all day. I had Spider-Man 2.
You got to the top of a building, and that's where the mission started?
That's where the mission started, on the roof. Everything just happened to be on the roof of something.
I remember that.
When you look at, I remember putting in the cheat codes to be Green Goblin, or you could wear these different skins, or the Alex Smith version of Spider-Man. So then going into Spider-Man 2, they did this thing where they expanded this universe in this game where you could go into stores and you could go all over New York City and just fall in the water. It was like GTA, but for Spider-Man, and that shit blew my mind. Then we get into Spider-Man 3, the movie, not the game. We get into Spider-Man 3, the movie, and I'm like, I'm expecting something big, because of the characters that you have in here are the ones that are more familiar outside of Hobgoblin, to me wasn't as popular back then, or I wasn't familiar with him, and Sandman wasn't as popular. The only thing I knew about Sandman was in a comic book cover, Spider-Man had sucked his ass up in a vacuum, and that was how he defeated him. And I was like, how do you make this motherfucker a villain? So that was kind of my expectation in Spider-Man 3.
That's fair. That's fair. And I remember, that's a really good point. I remember that's when I would start to like do research on Wikipedia about a character I didn't know. And I remember seeing Thomas Hayden Church, because I think he was in Sideways at that time. Before, right before then was when he got big, because he did that comedy about wine with Paul Giamatti that was set out in California and wine country. What?
I remember them from that late night show, Wings.
Oh, sure.
Was it Wings? Was it Wings?
Yeah.
Something about when he was flying planes and shit like that.
Yeah.
And I remember just because TV would just be on and he was in that old show. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It's this is kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I want to get into the pieces of this, like when I remember back in the day, the things that bugged me.
Yes.
Versus what bugged me now. I remember being really, really, really pissed about Harry's Goblin suit and the fact that he was on a snowboard versus a glider. I remember being outraged that they just were like, oh, and of course they did a snowboard because it has to be popular. Like, I remember being up in arms about that. For really no reason. And I said this to myself when I watched it today to kind of dive into it. I remember saying, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't know why I was so upset about that, because at the end of the day, Harry's supposed to be a young kid. Of course he would make it a more younger version of it. That creative choice didn't bug me. I remember being thoroughly disinterested in the like love story of this component between Peter and Mary Jane. I remember not really giving a shit about it, to be honest with you, in any way, shape, or form. And I remember being hung up on just some of like the campiness of some of these moments of like where people would say things or do things that just bugged me. Like that scene in that diner scene where Harry looks at that waitress and she says, "How's the pie?" And he goes, "So good." I remember repeating that line no less than 1,000,000 times. That to me was the funniest thing, because it highlighted everything wrong with the movie. Like, the acting was kind of all over the place. It felt really campy. It was stupid. And I remember, and I think I also remember being like, that's the first time we saw Venom like on a big screen. And I remember being thoroughly let down with Venom. And to be honest, that point still stands. I am thoroughly let down with the choices who they casted for Eddie Brock, and I'm thoroughly disappointed in what they did to Venom, what they did to my boy, because I always thought that was such a cool character. But it was just one of those things. Like, I remember seeing it and being like, "Fuck this!" Like, it just, that's it. Like, you basically said, "What can we do to make Venom more dangerous?" Well, let's get Tobey Maguire light. And we'll cast him in the movie to play Eddie Brock Jr.
Maguire light.
Yes, that is how
Pepsi. Okay, yep.
That is how I feel. That is how I feel about Topher Grace.
Okay, all right.
So,
all right, you're not holding back.
And that's just kind of where I was at. That like I remember being really disappointed when I watched it. Now I have a whole different list of issues with this particular movie because I paid a lot more attention to the dialogue.
Okay. Okay, keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going.
Yeah,
here's
keep
the
going.
thing here's the thing that bugs me about this.
Yeah.
They made choices in this movie. There's two pieces of this. So I have two forks in this particular road that funnel into why this movie is just a flaming bag of shit. The first thing that bugs me about this movie is the choice they made with Peter. And the choice that I really struggle with this is I don't think the way Peter was written was Peter fought the corruption of the black suit enough. To me, the way that this movie is paced, it feels like Peter gave into that black suit corrupting him like that, and he didn't even think twice about it. Whereas the way that I understood Peter at the time, remember, I grew up on the on the Amazing Spider-Man Fox TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that Venom episode, and every time he is just about to even hit somebody in that show, he stops himself and says, like, whoa, I got to slow down. This suit is doing something to me. Mm-hmm. This Sandman, he literally starts dissolving in water. Mm-hmm. This Peter sees that. He's like, oh, I'm going to get you, and just pours more water on this poor guy. Mm-hmm. Then the next day walks into his auntie's house and says, guess who I killed yesterday? Without actually saying it. He walks into her house. He's like, he's dead. And she's like, how? He's like, I don't know, Spider-Man? She's like, why would he do that? He's like, why wouldn't he? Deserved it, right? Peter Parker would never fucking say something.
He just rolled the fuck over.
He would feel immediately remorseful for having killed anybody, and Aunt May would be the last person he would tell.
Yeah.
He would tell a stranger on the subway that he killed somebody by accident before he told his Aunt May. That bugs me.
Yes.
That bugs me. It bugs me a lot because it's those choices with that character that just kind of irk me. So that's where I want to start, is like those moments with Peter bug me. And especially how he fights Harry. Like, he, even in that first scene where he clotheslines this poor kid and he hits every fucking thing on the way down. Mm-hmm. There's no like, let me try to just disable him. Like, let me try to just slow him down. He's like, nope, I got to take him out. And I am going to take him out. And he gives him CPR after, but I think it would have been more indicative of Peter and Harry's relationship if he had tried to like subdue Harry without hurting him. And this was, they have to fight to the death. I don't know if you know this, but that kid would be dead.
Yes.
Like, do you understand?
Yes. With the speed that he was on his snowboard, as you called it, and then he would be decapitated by how strong that web is. Because if I'm not mistaken,
100%.
The web is strong as steel.
Yes.
It stopped the fucking train in movie number 2. You mean to tell me that this motherfucker can control how soft it is now by Hank? Like, he just fucking hand cleans him. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He would be decapitated. And there's again, that's another, like, Peter doesn't care if he kills somebody. And it just, all of that subject matter for him bugs me. In how they wrote him and wrote him and what he did to it. And then there's just in general, the other aspect of this that like really kind of irks me is just this movie is doing too much. It is just doing too much. We need to tell it to like lay down, do less. You are doing way too much. And there's a reason for that. And it's because the studio got involved. And they insisted things were included that didn't need to be included. And so that has a lot of that. I can go into more detail, but I've talked for a very long time. So I'm curious what you think of where everything is at.
So, okay. I don't even know where to fucking start.
Okay.
So Spider-Man 3 is a mess because I used to think it was because I used to think it was because the amount of villains that was in this movie.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's the case. The reason that Spider-Man is a mess is because you have these halfway plot lines that could be easily resolved, but they stretched it over the span of 3-4 acts, whatever it's supposed to be, right? And so you not only have all of these half-ass storylines and plots, right? You have all of these characters dealing with something different. So you have Sandman and his daughter. That is a thing that cannot be talked about in the span of a movie, and he's a C character at best.
Yeah, I mean, he has maybe 20 minutes of screen time.
So then you look at Harry and his dad and all the shit he's got to go through with Harry and Peter, his dad and Mary Jane. You try to figure that shit out in 45 minutes, and then you try to kind of clean it up with the amnesia thing, which is a good plot line to say, oopsie, I forgot, now I'm going to make a comeback. You have Mary Jane, which, oh my God, and I'm going to start with her first.
Jesus Christ,
and then you have Peter with all of this shit, and I think you're right. The way that they wrote Peter is ass backwards. Because yes, you can feel yourself a little bit, but it's like Peter also knew with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
And how to be humble. You have to, that automatically comes with it.
Yeah.
His Uncle Ben, anytime Peter would have acted the fuck up, I have to imagine with the weight of how much his Uncle Ben meant to him, as how they depict it now. Now, I'm not saying, I didn't say this shit. Y'all made this shit the way it is. So with the weight of how much he's willing to murder somebody for his Uncle Ben and the memory of his Uncle Ben, you mean to tell me he wouldn't remember how humble his uncle was anytime he's about to do something drastic and fucking stupid?
Yes. I don't understand. I just find that
hard to believe.
Yeah. And it's almost like they didn't want to say with great power comes great responsibility line. And they were like, no, we have to save that to the very end. But that's the part of this that bugs me. And even during the flashback, like Peter's remembering that. And instead of it doing what I thought that would happen with the character is no, I have to be better than that.
Yes.
That you're right. That bugged me. That bugged me a lot.
And granted, it's the suit and it's about the symbiote feeding off of that anger. I understand the storyline, but also it's like, okay, Peter doing bad shit and then rubbing his chest every time like he got fucking heartburn does not define how strong that suit is in doing the bad shit that he did. Taking somebody in a dance in front of his ex, wash the suit or take the shit off. You know what I mean? Or put some goddamn talcum powder underneath the suit. So like you are dancing in front of your girlfriend with this new girl is not indicative of how badass the suit is making you. I don't give a fuck about you getting a new suit.
And do you just get to walk into a jazz club and if you jump up on the piano and you got dance moves, no motherfucker asks you to leave?
Before that, you slide the host $5 and tell her, get me some shade. You whisper in her ear,
sweet
get
cheeks.
me some shade.
Did you hear him say
sweet cheeks? Give me some shade.
And secondly, the fact that Gwen Stacy doesn't look at this motherfucker and go like, this date is over. Like, you just called the hostess sweet cheeks. I'm out. Thank you for inviting me. Let's never do this again. Like,
it's the worst. She's like, is that your girlfriend? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, you know, I'll be okay. And then she disappeared. As soon as that motherfucker would have did the little twinkle fingers on the piano, I'm out. I don't give a fuck. I am out of here.
Or the fact that when she's like, oh, isn't that your ex-girlfriend? And he sneers and goes, I'm cool with it. It's like, then I'm going to go to the bathroom or I'm going to text my friend Twinkle Toe and they're going to come and pick my ass up.
And we're going to fucking go. Here's my problem. So I'm going to start here. So I don't want to get into, 41 minutes in. You know what I mean?
That's fine.
Get right to it. Mary Jane Watson.
Yes.
The way that they wrote Mary Jane Watson. Now, my perception of Mary Jane Watson was always she was the complete opposite of Peter, where Peter was more humbled and not really humbled, but he was more mild-mannered, if that's a fair term to use.
I think so.
Mary Jane was the complete opposite. She was strong and fierce, and she was all of these things in a comic book and encouraged him to go, and, she had all of this confidence in the world. When I look at Mary Jane in this movie was written so in a complete 180.
Yes.
She in the beginning lines, she tells Peter two things. She tells him in the beginning after he saw the play, tell me how good I was again. Excuse me?
Fuck. I said it once.
Me? I told you I was sitting in the front row. You were great. I came to you, bought you flowers. I'm cheering you on. And she's like, really, was it good, Peter? Tell me how good I was again.
And tell me that you love me. I just fucking said it.
Doug, you beat me to it. Motherfucker, build a web in the park. And this motherfucker says, tell me you love me. I said, what? Excuse me?
I built you a fucking web. Like,
I just made you a web thing in the tree. I don't even know what this shit is connected to. People can see us. They would know I'm Spider-Man if they saw me in this goddamn web thing.
Yeah, I want like a cut to the crackhead in the bushes going like, is anybody else seeing that? Like, because like,
I'm not tripping right now.
It's New York. There are people in that park. There's not like they came to South Dakota.
In this goddamn web. There's birds and shit flying, getting caught in this web because he's trying to be goddamn romantic. This shit ain't romantic. Dog, you don't have a mask on and a cheap ass 3-piece suit. Get off the web and go the fuck home. she's like, tell me you love me. Peter, this isn't about you. Here was the other thing they got me about Mary Jane.
Okay.
Motherfucker, he is Spider-Man.
It's true.
He is saving the city. You walk out because you got fired. It is a sad day because you got fired, and they did not call you in to tell you were getting fired. I get that whole thing, and you know what I mean? That was your dream and your passion. But also, you walk outside thinking people are giving you applause for a fucking play.
Because you walked out?
Because you walked out a back alley, like people are supposed to know you are walking out?
Yeah.
And then you get mad because you see him swinging by, being Spider-Man, saving lives. Yeah. What have you done today?
Right. You showed up to get fired. That's what you did today.
And that's beyond. Before that, what did you do? How many people did you save? Did you eat up somebody across the goddamn street?
Well, and this brings up an interesting question that I had, is because I agree with you. Those moments are like, what were your realistic expectations, lady? Like, let's slow down here a little bit. But there is a part of me that, like, when she's telling him like how bad a day he had, like when she's like, oh man, I had a terrible day, and he goes, no, I can relate, you know, as Spider-Man. There is a part of me that would have been like,
that part is
out loud. I was like, dude, you might want to stop, like there. Don't go down that road.
Yeah.
No one's gonna feel sorry for you.
But there's other moments when he's at and he was absolutely wrong for that, right?
Oh yeah.
There are 100%. Other moments when he's at dinner, right?
Yes.
And she says to him, so when were you going to tell me about her? Huh? That's just some girl in class. She's not important. She's a girl in class.
Well,
I mean, she's jealous.
And also remember at that point, he did do their signature upside down kiss.
Doug, here's the thing
literally thousands of people.
Here's the thing about a signature kiss. The only ones that know that kiss is signature is him and Mary Jane. Nobody else knows that shit.
That's true. That's okay.
That does not define. We only know because we watched it like a bunch of creepazoids watching two people kiss in the fucking rain in the first one. But that's signature, hey, that's our kiss. How many people you done kissed upside down? If I hang over the bed and my girl come and kiss me, guess what? Not a signature kiss. I'm sorry.
You can do it for anybody. That's true. It's a good point. That's a fair point. It's still he shouldn't have kissed.
No, he shouldn't have did it. No, he should not have done it. He fucked up, and that was their kiss. That's the thing. Yeah. He did fuck that up, and even letting her kiss him in the first place, I would be like, no, thank you. I'm just here for the key.
I will say this to Toby. Toby did this excellent reaction shot, and she said, when were you going to tell me about her? And he had that same look of like, that's just some girl from like,
yeah, he really looked lost. He really did.
I got caught, everybody. But yeah, that is that's a good point. I hated. I mean, much of their relationship, I hated. I like I said, and I heard, and the thing is like when you listen to the dialogue that was written for her, she sounds entitled, and then she sounds angry that she's not getting any attention. And I hate that for her, because to your earlier point, she is entirely, for all intents and purposes, out of Peter's league. And their love is so connected for who they are that when she figures out he's Spider-Man, she is proud and excited for him. But there is no moment where this Mary Jane, and I don't think it's Kirsten Dunst's fault. I think it's the writing. The writing was written as such where she was not allowed to be supportive. She had the only option she was given is, you're supposed to be jealous to keep this thing between Peter and Harry an issue, instead of moving that route.
Even at the end of Spider-Man 2, we see her leave the wedding. You know, she's running from the wedding to Peter. She hugs him at the end and kind of gives this look into the camera. Or when he hops out to go swinging, it comes back to Mary Jane, and she's sitting there like, what did I just do? I just feel like, man, you knew what you were getting into. You know what I mean?
That's true.
He is Spider-Man.
Which makes me have questions about how much time has passed.
Right.
I have a lot of questions about how much time has passed, because one, I don't know what the time is between 2 and 3. Not that it's entirely relevant, but it assumes that, I mean, Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004. This is 3 years later that this next one came out. I assume they weren't like, well, it's tomorrow.
Yeah. It would have to have followed the time.
Right. And so
which brings me to my next point. You know Harry's got to be. Harry feels like you killed his father. You know that.
Oh yeah.
Harry also knows who the fuck you are. You
100%.
think you can just walk around and not keep your head on the swivel? Like this motherfucker was not going to follow down his daddy's path?
Right.
And to stem off of that, the goddamn butler, you had this information the whole time.
And you literally watched two friends kick the shit out of each other in the house. It's not like any other motherfucker ain't cleaning that house up. That's you, Playboy. That's like you're cleaning that mess up. That explosion and behind that portrait, that's you, brother. They don't hire in a maid to clean that up. That's you. Like, you have to do that. So the fact that you sat there and was just like, oh, by the way, I'm gonna let these two dudes figure it out. No, I don't think so.
No, you fucking fired. You're fired, and don't come back, because I wasted all my time coming up with a serum to make me stronger, wasting all this damn time when you could have just told me, hey, buddy, your dad killed himself. I cleaned his wounds. He killed himself. And you're headed down the same path.
You should stop before this gets out of control.
Jesus.
Yeah, that a lot of that. And I also just have issues with like Harry's. I mean, I get the amnesia as a plot point, but I have a lot of issues with the way James Franco played that, because I felt he didn't play it person with amnesia. I felt like he played it with a
person with a disability,
with a mental disability.
I said Doug, I said the same thing.
In that hospital, when he's like, I fell down, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Come on, James. He's not. Come on, man. Like, he's not.
He's not mentally disabled. He's not, bro. He is not. There's not nobody. You said you have amnesia, not brain damage.
Right.
Why are you talking? I had a whoopsie. Look, one hit my head, and now I'm free.
Or when Mary Jane comes in, he's like, I know that face.
Yeah. Like, I wrote you a play one time when I was in high school. Like, why are you talking like that?
Are you a different person? Like, it's
just
that. Oh, that bugged me so much. I remember saying that, and I was like, why is he acting like that?
He's so stupid, Franco. Now I look back on it. That is so stupid. That's why he looked up and gave that look. It was like, the pie is good. Like, the pie, he was so good.
So good.
So good. Like, what's wrong with you? What's up?
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is like, I remember it different. I thought he did the strawberries rub of his lips, which was the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen. I thought he did that in the diner. So there was a very real moment where I paused the movie and I watched that scene again. I was like, they edited it, and then nope, just misremembered. But
he did that shit in the house.
When he rubs his lips, I was like, we know how you tasted strawberries, man. Keep your hands out your mouth.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Peter puts on the suit just to go to the house, his ass, and then throws a bomb at this guy, and everybody's all forgive. I would not have died. Fuck that. Fuck that.
First off, Harry would be dead. Second off, the nerve of Toby to go back there later and be like, hey, man,
I need your help.
I need help. My ass would be like, you better get out of here. I got a whole closet full of new shit for you. You better get out of here. Because that was insane. That was the most insane.
First of all, you tried to decapitate me, throw a bomb at me. Right. Like, it's what's going on? What's going on, man? What's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. It's insane. Yeah, I think you're right though. I think it's not multiple villains. It's half-cocked storylines. And the fact that we didn't see more of Aunt May in this. I mean, Aunt May only gets 10, 20 minutes worth of time. And that's what's really weird, is because, again, if this is supposed to be a story about redemption and forgiveness, which feels like the payoff at the end, but it's a really weak payoff.
And it's based around Sandman instead of.
And again, can we talk about Sandman for a minute? So let's see. I want to see if I understand this correctly. First off, you mean to tell me there's a particle testing facility within 20 miles of New York City? No, there fucking is not.
Yeah, wait. Before you even get there, why are they particle testing sand? It's just sand. And they never gave a reason as to why that they were testing sand.
And also, can we talk about how shitty the scientists were?
Oh,
okay. You all can measure mass. I know you can. You're scientists, and you know how to do it, and I don't. You're scientists, and you're like, man, the mass density, the density of this mass has changed. It's probably just a bird. Okay, a bird weighs at most 5 ounces.
And fucking, this guy was huge. This motherfucker's muscle mass
man is 210, mostly muscle. What the fuck are you talking about?
And that motherfucker, that doctor hopped up there like a DJ talking about. It was probably just a bird.
It's probably just a bird. And the other guy was like, I should still go, right? Like, I already hit the button. We're going, right? Like, they did not. The safety measures at that science lab are shut down immediately. Also, the fact at the very end, Thomas Hayden Church basically just disappears into the wind.
Yep.
And wow, what?
Yep. He supposedly has this deep conversation with Spider-Man, basically begging and pleading, like, all right, Spider-Man,
I didn't want to do this.
I didn't want to do this, man. My daughter's sick. That's the only reason I did this shit. And Spider-Man's like, all right, man, go ahead, do your thing.
I forgive you.
He tells him the story about how his uncle got shot. And it was almost like Spider-Man's like, yep, that's good old Uncle Ben taking a bullet for the, you know what I mean? Like,
taking a bullet for the little guy.
Like, what the fuck? And he just like, go on, be with the Lord. And the sand just goes over. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I want to go be with the Lord.
It's like, what are you doing? This movie is so, first of all, Spider-Man would have died a lot quicker. Venom,
100%.
and Sandman beating the dog shit out of Spider-Man.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
And here's the other thing. I want to address the monster in the room, which is I would really like to know what version of Catholicism Eddie Brock Jr. practices that this man walked into a cathedral and said, "Hey God, it's me. Can you kill a man for me?" Yeah. Then the bells rung and he goes, "He's gonna do it." Like, you must not have read any of it.
Like, the hell?
You didn't read.
You must be smoking too much weed in that goddamn basement. Because this is not it.
Yeah. I mean, those choices, and I feel like you could have gotten a different dude to pay opposite Peter Parker.
You had to have.
Topher Grace is a great actor. I've seen him in other things beyond this.
Okay.
I just don't understand why he was the choice. I don't hold him accountable for being in the movie because they made the decision to hire him. But there's a part of me that looks at this and goes, you certainly could have played that differently. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't get it. The mouth, every inch of that, the Venom character in general, every inch of that bugs me. The fact that, I mean, he knows Peter's secrets, but he doesn't know Peter's secrets. And if you find, like, why didn't Venom tell Sandman, "Oh yeah, that's Peter Parker, and I know that because of this reason and this"? Like, he just said, "I have all of his secrets up here." There's just all sorts of that. That whole relationship felt really, really rushed, and it felt very. We're gonna try to put this square peg in a round hole, and we're just gonna keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it until it fits.
I mean, here's the thing about Topher Grace. I'm gonna assume he's a good actor, and this was after what felt like the first thing I seen him in after that 70s show was over. When I look at Venom, I'm looking at somebody kind of how Venom is now, the opposite physically first, the opposite build. Venom is bigger, and even Eddie Brock in general 100%. Is bigger
because he's a bodybuilder.
And that was the thing. It was like, and this is once again my reference to the Fox Spider-Man was like, this Venom was big as hell and got the powers from that Spider-Man, but really craved the other Spider-Man, and it had a voice. Mm-hmm. This depiction of Venom was like, okay, it was just a symbiote. It had kind of a mind, but really, it was, I don't know, really just Eddie Brock who was more so in control than the Venom suit was. So, and then the teeth, when Eddie Brock peels his face back and his natural teeth is messed up, and then you look at, like, I don't know, Venom is kind of built like Spider-Man, but just like a little bit buffer Spider-Man with no chin. I don't know what the fuck going on, really. It's just too much shit happening. Happening.
There's a lot of shit like that. And there was a lot of those choices that bugged me.
Yeah.
Of like those little things. And I think, again, we keep saying this movie was all over the place. Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole jazz diner thing is fucking insane. And I know we talked about it with the, like, Gwen Stacy being on a date. The fact that we had more than one scene with a jazz dancing number blows my fucking mind. And here's the other thing.
Going through?
I don't know. And here's the other thing that, like, and here's the thing. Raimi does humor like that. I mean, if you've watched Evil Dead, specifically Evil Dead 2, and then even Army of Darkness, he does a lot of that style of humor. He even did a horror movie after this one. I'm going to look it up here in a second, but he did a horror movie after this one that was very kind of humorous. It had those moments of like weird, like random jokes, but they were generally funny. I think the issue is that you're in downtown New York. People watch you walk out of a suit store, dancing like an asshole from 1970, and everybody's like, the guy's feeling himself. Look at him go.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't understand why that was the choice. That was the choice that kind of really stuck with me, because there was no need for it. You had already, it was an evil Peter had so many things adding up that would have by themselves would have been enough to convince me that he was different.
Oh yeah.
You didn't need suit rubbing your chest like you have Vicks Vapor Rub on. You didn't need hair falling over your face like you're in an emo band. You didn't need all of those things. I got it. And can we talk about the other thing of how just shitty he was to women in general?
Oh yeah,
like
it's terrible.
The poor girl that works in his apartment, she's like, do you got any cookies with nuts? And she's like, well, I could go make some, thinking that's an unreasonable thing that no one would ever say to go do. He's like, oh yeah, go get me some. Who the fuck are you? Like,
and that's supposed to be once again, how do you define how bad the suit is making someone?
Right.
Typical Peter Parker would have just gotten. I don't think that the version that they showed was a 180 of who Peter Parker was. I just think that you just went completely off the board and was like, well, let's do some shit that he would never do. Like, certain shit, Peter would stand up for himself, and like that would make sense. Yeah. But the way that he was treating women, like, I don't think that Peter would have done that. But also, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
I mean, it's supposed to. I mean, and they kind of address that in the scene where it's like, oh, it once it bonds with you, it makes your qualities, it makes your qualities worse, particularly aggression. But being an asshole and being aggressive are two very different things.
Yeah.
You could be an asshole and not aggressive at all, and you can be pretty aggressive, but at the end of the day, not an asshole.
Because then in retrospect, my question is, what made Venom so goddamn big and bad? Because before, Eddie Brock was not. He wasn't bad like that. All he did was do a bad Photoshop, and
he tried to get ahead. He tried to get ahead, and I don't think anybody, given the circumstances, would have done anything to him. He tried to take a shortcut, but then they tried to retcon that at the very end, where they were like, "Why are you doing this?" He goes, "Because I like being bad. It makes me happy."
And it's like, all you did was Photoshop a fucking photo one time, and that's where you got your kids.
You were in a relationship. You were an eager beaver, but you weren't an asshole.
Yeah,
It's like the Venom suit was made of like Ed Hardy cologne, and you put it in and you just turned into an aggressive asshole that's mean to women and just mean for no reason. And I don't understand that.
It's like, I know you're a douchebag, but it's like, I know you can't fight. Like, yes, you look stupid as hell and you smell like shit, but also I know you can't fucking fight. Like, if it really boiled down to it, you really wouldn't be about that shit.
I do also have this other question. And it's me being a critique, but what is Peter's suit made of in this movie and in any of these Spider-Man movies? Because he gets hit with something and half of it falls off.
Well, this is what pissed me off, dude. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
That was my point. It's like he gets hit once and like his arm sleeve is completely torn and half of his face is off. I'm like, dude, the guy just looked at you. Like, you're not even in a fight yet.
Here's the thing that pissed me off. I literally said this shit out loud. I watched this movie like an hour ago, right before the podcast.
Okay.
And in the whole final fight scene, this dumbass is Spider-Man is walking around with half of the face and the mouth. They have a hole. Yep. There's literally only a corner of the mask, and he's still wearing this shit in a serious face, talking to Mary Jane. Bitch, take that fucking mask off. You look stupid as hell.
Right. And that's the moment where you're like, you okay? Yeah, I'm good. How's your mom? Is she all right?
What are you doing? She's like, I'm fine. Like, first of all, she's acting weird. He just saved
you. Is it the Jazz Diner okay?
And here's the other thing. Motherfucker, nobody ever explained that fucking Harry was the one that told her.
Oh, hey, yeah, no, he got away with it.
Nobody ever explained that shit.
No, she never said anything. And the fact that that man was let back into that establishment after the performance he gave is mind-blowing.
Yes.
I do not understand how at the end of the movie, that movie finishes with him walking back into a place where he's kicking chairs, dancing on pianos, flipping over motherfuckers, sexually assaulting the hostess, and they're not like, no, not you. You could get the fuck out of here. Like, and the second thing is she stops singing and she's like, peace out. Mail me my check. I'm out.
That's the worst way. This is the worst. I'm thinking about it now in real time. This is the worst way to end a trilogy.
Oh, that ending was terrible.
That scene where we typically have Spider-Man swinging off into the distance with an American flag or whatever it is this motherfucker lands on. And this time they're like, no, we're gonna end it in the jazz diner.
And it's gonna end with a handshake. Like, it's gonna end with a handshake and a hug.
Come on,
and credits. Thanks, Toby. Like, that's all it is.
That's how you end Toby's legacy. And this is part of the reason why I feel like they bought them back. I feel like Kevin, and call me crazy, but I do feel like the only one that didn't really need to be bought back for redemption, a redemption arc, which is what Spider-Man No Way Home feels like a little bit, is Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Those two, I think, had great endings. They sacrificed Doc Ock turned good, sacrificed himself. Everything was good to go. Green Goblin killed himself, ended with the perfect line, "Don't tell Harry," and then he dies. But then when you look at Jamie Foxx and the Amazing Spider-Man and all that shit like that, and maybe Sandman a little bit because he didn't really get a full ending. Okay, and Lizard, those characters needed to be brought back to maybe given some kind of conclusion.
The only two that you said didn't need to are the two that did the best job. And I will say the fact that they were able to keep getting the guy who played Green Goblin to come back even in 3 to do an appearance was incredible because his performance was that impressive.
It was that good. I think Willem Dafoe is just a solid guy, and I also think Alfred Medina is also solid as hell too.
I think he's just a solid actor. They're both just got great chops.
They both have great chops, and they understand. They don't act like some of these, and it kind of pisses me off. Some of these actors who play these legacy characters that we so love, they kind of forget where they came from. Yes. And I understand the fandom can be a lot, but there are some, like, I believe, like Willem Dafoe, when they asked him to come back, and I think he asked, well, what's the story? And I think that somebody was like, okay, well, yeah, the story makes sense. I'll do it.
I mean, Alfred Molina was in a movie from 1986 about a lynching in Mississippi called Mississippi Burning, where he plays a lawyer investigating it. The dude has some fucking chops and can act. So the fact that they're like, what's the story? And they're not going to come back. I appreciate that it's not, I'm not going to come back just for fan service. I am going to come back if it's meaningful and it makes sense for me to do so. I feel like, again, those moments are where Kevin Feige does. I feel like that's why you have Kevin Feige on staff to say, you want me to bring them back, then you give me a story that I feel like is worthy of me even making that ask. I think that that's kind of the air about him, that he insists on there being quality before he's going to put forth time, energy, and effort and dollars. And I think that's impressive.
Why else would you do this? Like,
that's true.
I'm thinking out loud. This is Tom Holland's, your trilogy is your crown. It determines your run as Spider-Man. And they've seen this before where they said, we've gotten a Spider-Man trilogy before. And Jesus, we got halfway through a Spider-Man trilogy that got canceled. They filmed it. They filmed some shit and everything, and apparently just got, I guess, canceled, right? So then, they have to look at this and say, we have to do this the right way. They are. Marvel's kind of decent with trilogies. Thor is a little iffy. Iron Man's also a little iffy. Captain America's a little iffy too, if you ask me.
They're all a little iffy. Their third acts are a little rushed, and it's not always their third. It's one in each.
It's one in each of them.
Thor: Dark World exists to make sure that you understand that the ether is an infinity.
That was the only purpose for that movie.
That the only reason why that one got made.
And I believe that if they had streaming, they would have done that movie completely different. It would have been it would have been a Disney Plus show. But you look at this, and I'm like, why do you bring back these big name actors, these legacy characters for this kid who's new to it, trying to make his own name. There has to be a reason you're trying to either wrap this shit up or you're trying to continue telling the story and expand the Spider-Verse. I have no idea what direction they about to go.
I also don't know. I think, though, I do think that there are going to be some moments that come through with some of these that make a lot of sense. And I think I think we're going to see, we're going to watch, spoiler alert for everybody listening, we're going to watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the Andrew Garfield one, for next week to prep. So I think we'll have more to discuss. I do think Tobey is going to bring the level of expertise having being put in that situation, assuming he's the same Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3 that's being pulled in, because that's the other thing that I don't think anyone has considered. What if it's Tobey but in a different universe?
I don't think it could be, though.
I don't think it could. I don't think it could be either.
But that's a great
perspective. But it could be.
It could be.
So
because where the Sandman, they all come in where they're about to die. Is that Goblin right before the first moment in Spider-Man? So it has to be the same Tobey, right?
Well, I think that's the other thing, is that, like, remember they said, like, well, in their universes, they die. That's a different Electro than what we said. That's a different Electro. Because even, I've watched enough of the breakdowns of images. He's wearing an arc reactor on his chest. That's a different Electro. So it's possible that these are different versions of those characters that we know,
or the same version. And somebody had a theory that Electro has been here already. So, like,
I saw that. That was interesting.
Blue, they got all these powers, and then he has been living here, got his hand on some Stark tech, and doesn't want to leave, and knows what life could be, or whatever the case may be, because they then compared it to Venom pops up on the timeline where Spider-Man gets revealed. So everybody doesn't come in at the same time. Everybody's coming in at different. So it's interesting. I don't know where Sandman. The only place Sandman could absolutely come in is when he gets washed away and turned to mud.
That's the only thing that I could think too. Is that's where he pops in.
But Doc Ock, and then he dies.
Well, then and I have other questions. I have other questions too, because my other question is this a Back to the Future scenario where they have to return him just to that point, or it screws? That's what I think that's the exciting part of this, is figuring out the timeline and the time travel element of this, because there's a moment of, like, okay, you pull him out of that universe. Well, he's gonna fuck up the one he's in, but it's gonna fuck up the one he left. So it just raises the stakes for why he has to go back, because these things have to happen. But again, what we know is from watching Loki, they don't have to happen.
They don't have to happen. Yeah.
They don't have to happen.
But nobody knows that. So that's the interesting.
There's all sorts of shit happening. I'm excited.
I wish that Spider-Man 3 didn't happen.
I kind of wish it didn't. I want to give you some information before we get into how, because I want you to hear the version that maybe we were set to get versus the version that we got. So quick update. So March 2004, Spider-Man 2 is released. Huge hit. Basically, right after it came out, Sony announces we're working on a Spider-Man 3 for release in 2007. And so that's kind of where they were at. In 2005, Sony completed a 7-figure deal with the screenwriter Alvin Sargent, who had penned Spider-Man 2. They were going to sign him to write Spider-Man 3, and they gave him an option to write a 4th film. That's where this whole mystery of the 4th came from.
Spider-Man
they signed that.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
So Ivan Raimi writes a treatment, takes him about 2 months. Sam Raimi kind of says, like, well, let's use this film to kind of explore the idea that Peter is not a sinless vigilante, and that his actions have implication for the criminals he's hunting, that they are still people and his actions have impact on others. And it's not just about being a superhero. It's about that power responsibility dynamic. They really wanted to bring Harry back. They didn't really want him to follow in his father's legacy. They wanted him to kind of be somewhere in between Peter and Sandman, like some of this like flux of, you're not really sure his intention, but that's kind of, you don't know really where he's going to fall. Sandman was only brought in because Raimi really liked him visually as a character, and I will give them credit. Sandman's powers and the way that they were able to make him move for 2007, It's impressive. It's not bad.
Yeah.
They also kind of wrote a different character arc for him and made him the criminal. Where in the comics he's not the guy who killed Peter's where he killed Uncle Ben, but they kind of wrote him this way. Overall, this movie is going to be those 4 characters: Peter, Mary Jane, Harry, and the Sandman, and really Peter's journey being one of forgiveness. Hence that ending sequence with Peter. No Venom at all. Raimi wanted another villain. At one point in time, Ben Kingsley was involved in negotiations to play Vulture before the character was inevitably cut. The producer, Avi Arad, had convinced Raimi to include Venom, who's a character whose perceived lack of humanity had been criticized by Sam Raimi, basically saying he's too much of an opposite for us to put in this movie about forgiveness. We can't do it. Like, I don't want to do it. Eddie Brock already had a minor role in the script. They weren't going to they were going to tease him and have him run into Spider-Man a couple times or into Peter a couple times, but they weren't going to make it that way. Arad felt that the series relied on too many of Raimi's personal favorite Spider-Man villains, not characters that fans wanted to see. So he basically says,
Arad fucked this shit up.
Arad said, we have to give the fans what they want. And if we give the fans what they want, then they'll love it. And so
this is where you fucked up. Okay. Okay. Keep going. I'm gonna save mine. Go ahead.
You save it. So eventually Raimi made the decision to include Venom just to please the studio. And as he kept doing it, he was like, all right, this isn't such a bad character. And so basically the reason why that Topher Grace was cast is they wanted him to be a human version that was close to Peter. They didn't want it to be the opposite. They wanted it to be these 2 kids are essentially the same, but their powers take them in different directions.
Which would be a good movie if it was just that story being told.
Yep. So anyway, his actions as a journalist were supposed to represent paparazzi, which were big at the time. Then they also suggested involving Gwen Stacy to have be like an other girl type. And Raimi had already had her in there, but wasn't going to do a whole lot with her. And basically the guy, Alvin Sargent, soon found his script so complex that he was like, let's split this into 2 movies. But the problem is that there wasn't enough storyline for them to find a natural climax where you could end part 1 and then pick up part 2. So that is some production background of how this movie came to be. And I think it's pretty clear where this went off the rails. The minute the studio said, well, we have to do X to please fans, is the minute that this shit went off the rails. The very minute this shit went off the rails. And I got all of that from Wikipedia, so you can dive a little bit deeper and take it with a grain of salt because it's not a peer-reviewed or like an actual source. But so you can look at it and look at it for yourself. But the fact that Avi Arad, who's a producer for Sony, says, well, this doesn't do enough to please fans, I would have much rather see Raimi's original script of it being a story of forgiveness with Vulture, Sandman, and I think that if you don't have so much shit going on with Venom and Sandman, I think that you can write a compelling story where Harry and Mary Jane and Peter have personal trouble, and that there is this dynamic where Harry knows Peter's secret and chooses not to follow in his father's footsteps, but doesn't forgive Peter yet either. That's a much more compelling story of this, because you can follow in your father's footsteps if you want to, right? Like, you can, you just choose not to. And so I think there's a lot more there about like choice and the power of your choice and the power of forgiveness. That's a much more compelling story arc than the bullshit that we got, because like you mentioned at the top of this, it is 8 different quarter stories jammed into a 4-act movie.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Here's my perspective. God. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my perspective.
Okay.
When you try to you money hungry bitches, because when you try to say, well, this is what the fans want, you mean that this is what the fans will pay for.
Absolutely. You got it. You bing, bing, bing. So Marcus for 500.
So when you say shit like the fans will love this, you really means that this will really sell because they want to see some shit. Which, when you look at Spider-Man 3, when you heard the names of the villains that were going to be in this, Hobgoblin, Venom, Sandman.
Weird.
You're just like, oh, okay, cool. I want to see Venom for the first time on the screen. I want to see Hobgoblin because I want to see the completion of that story. And Sandman, we've never seen on screen either. So, like, let's see what he can do. Oh, not to mention the actors that are playing him. Cool, right?
Yeah.
So this is 2007 when we were used to seeing these completion of these stories like this.
Yeah.
Right?
They had neat endings. They had clean endings.
Neat and clean endings. And you money hungry bitches.
Yeah.
You should have trusted Raimi to do his thing. Look at Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2.
That's what I don't understand. I don't understand. You shell out this massive deal to pay this writer who just wrote you a fucking huge hit in Spider-Man 2 that was a great movie story arc wise and plot wise and the way it developed. And you said, no, you're going to come in and clean up this mess to make it appease fans and make us money while still holding on to Ivan Raimi's original, like what he spent 2 months putting together. That's not how you write a movie. You don't write a movie by committee. You essentially, and again, Raimi had done 1 and 2. What did he do in 1 and 2 that made you essentially say we don't trust him to do 3?
And don't tell somebody that they were too dependent on their favorite characters. Here's the thing. If we've learned anything, and I'll use Zack Snyder's Justice League because I just honestly believe it's a good template and a good story when it comes to studios getting involved in some shit.
Oh, sure.
And when a director has their favorite, when the director directs their favorite characters.
Absolutely.
When you look at directors who love the characters, and when you look at actors who love the characters they play, they are going to take the time, like Tom Holland, even in the Spider-Man shit. You think they gave this motherfucker 3 more trilogies just because it's a moneymaker? That ain't it. It's because Tom Holland said he wants to be the RDJ to the next generation.
Yes.
He wants to craft Spider-Man the way that he wants to craft, and he's going to grow with this character because he knows, first of all, it's going to be a hit, and he's going to have a legacy that beats out. Because I believe, put a pin in that last thing, I believe Tom Holland is not no dummy. And I'm going to say it this way. Tom Holland knows that he is mentioned with Tobey and Andrew Garfield. And I believe that this motherfucker was like, okay, watch me work, and is going to develop a Spider-Man that is going to be easily, hands down, the best Spider-Man we've seen.
I think that I unfortunately think that you need to have Spider-Man 3 in order to get the Amazing Spider-Man, which would eventually leads us to the Spider-Man we're getting now. Because if you watch interviews with folks, Andrew Garfield was inspired by Tobey Maguire, and you have to believe that Tom Holland was inspired by Andrew Garfield and what Tobey did. You cannot have those folks.
No.
They don't exist in a vacuum, and they are drawing influence from it. What have we said from the get-go? That Tobey's Peter is a good Peter. Andrew's Spider-Man is a good Spider-Man, and Tom's is a blend of both because he's been fucking doing the homework and he knew the assignment.
That was the only.
I have to capture both of these.
Yes. He knew, and he's gonna play it humble, and he's gonna say, "I love." He's not gonna come and deliberately say that I'm gonna be the best fucking Spider-Man. But you better believe anybody that loves their craft and their talent, they're gonna say, "I'm gonna be the fucking best at what it is and what I do." I don't give a fuck. I don't care. When you mention me with Tobey and Garfield, watch me act in this 3rd movie. Watch me make Spider-Man some shit you ain't never seen before. And then have the audacity to bring in these 2 motherfuckers and say, yes, I'm going to act right beside them and show you who the best Spider-Man is.
100%. Absolutely.
And Alpha, whatever your motherfucker, whatever.
Javier Rob.
Not to discredit you, but to say that it's too dependent on Raimi's favorite characters. That's why the shit is so fucking successful in the first place.
And I mean, we see it with people all the time. Like it again, the Russo brothers loved the Infinity War story, and they wanted to pay homage to it. We've got to stop saying that people love something too much, so they're too close to it, so they can't do it right.
That's not true.
That is not how this works.
No.
Directors are capable of taking something they love and putting it on screen. And I think that world is the only world in which you have a valid argument against the Scorseses and the Ridley Scotts and the Dennis Villeneuves of the world. You can't say for things like Spider-Man and others, that's not good enough, because those people love that character and they want to do the best version of it that they possibly can. You absolutely can say that of Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
You can say that's trash, that's watering down the market, so my shit doesn't get out. That is a valid argument.
That's a great. I just feel like it's just when your focus is off. When you look at Thor: The Dark World, or you look at Justice League, the Whedon cut, or you look at Spider-Man 3, or Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer is good. It's a sequel though.
I have questions about that too, though.
I have questions. I mean, it's like they did what a sequel was supposed to do, right? Oh, you like these characters and these dynamics? We're going to amplify that times 10 in the sequel.
If a little is good, more must be better. Yeah,
exactly.
If a little's good, more must be better. Yep.
That's exactly what they did. And it was like, oh, okay, great. Like this is going to be good because we want to do more of that. But you fuck it up every single time.
100%.
When you don't have focus, you have to have a central focus. And Thor: The Dark World was trying to tell this story about the goddamn ether, while also telling a story about elves and shit that I really just didn't give a fuck about, and a halfway relationship between Thor and
Natalie
Jane Foster.
Yeah.
Which now they got to give her a redemption arc when it comes to Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, it's just there's too much all over the place, and we need to stop doing this. And I think, again, those moments are moments where you can say things like, yeah, that type of stuff. And maybe that's part of the argument is like, you have to now do so much of them to either make up or to keep the machine rolling that again, the market becomes saturated where that's the only thing that comes out. And every year there's 3 of these things. And so I get their point, and Spider-Man 3 is the one that kicked it all off.
But you have to have, but you're right. You have to have a Spider-Man 3 in order not to get another Spider-Man 3.
Oh, 100%.
Somebody's got to learn a lesson from this. And I think the Amazing Spider-Man was kind of on the right route. It was a lot of
the Amazing Spider-Man, the one where it's just Lizard, is good, and I'm here for. The second one where it's like, well, we're going to kind of tease Rhino, and then Green Goblin's kind of in it, and then Electro's the really big problem. Like, all 3 of those things. Again, it just had too much going on.
Too much halfway stories.
We'll see this next week. I still think, though, those are more complete plot lines.
Yes, they have to be.
Yeah.
It's the only reason you brought them back was to say, hey, you remember these characters that died, or like whatever? Like, you only brought these characters back to introduce and to complete the arcs of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, absolutely.
And to define what the difference in what Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, and I think it's the last lesson. It's the last lesson that they can learn.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm looking at how these movies ended, Tobey Maguire lost his best friend because Harry died.
Yeah. And Gwen.
And Gwen. But Tobey Maguire lost his best friend. Andrew Garfield lost the love of his life. These 2 are going to come in at the climax of this fucking movie to make sure that young Tom Holland doesn't make those same mistakes.
That's fine. That's fine.
And it's fine. It's fine. But that's what's missing. Is that Tom Holland's Peter Parker knows how to be as close to an Iron Man as he can, or knows that he can't be and he needs to be himself. He learned that in the second one. This one is going to be, we now need you to see that you can't ignore the stuff that's close to you either.
That's fair, and the importance of protecting your people. And I think that the gist of the movie or the theme of the movie was said in one of these teasers for Spider-Man: Far From Home was there has to be another way. And I think because Peter is always willing to be the person that's trying to find another way or trying not to immediately, he's defining who his Peter is and what that means.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see where they go with this. I'm glad we did rewatch this.
I am actually glad we did too. It's trash, but I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah, it's absolute garbage. But I do like seeing where Sandman is and seeing where I'll have to watch The Amazing Spider-Man, but like to see where these villains are and where their headspace is and what they plan to do in the future. We don't know. We just want to. And y'all, please, not to our faithful listeners. This is nothing to do with you, but to any new listeners that come in here, it ain't really to you either. But if it is, oh well.
Who is this for then?
You're right. Well, good point. This is for all those motherfuckers that keep theory after goddamn theory after goddamn Spider-Man theory.
Even though we just did that, that's fine. We don't do it often.
Y'all do it every single.
Can't do it.
Every TikTok.
I can't even keep up with it.
It's just watch the goddamn movie.
Please, just watch the movie, please. That's all I really want you to do.
Go to the theater. Don't record nothing. Turn your phone on airplane mode. Sit the fuck down and watch the movie.
And enjoy it.
Enjoy it and talk about it later.
Or don't. I don't give a shit.
Or don't. Keep it to yourself.
But either way.
And if you don't like it, be the first one with a theory, and everybody want to be the first one with a TikTok that go viral with a theory and shit.
And here's the thing. You can not like it, and you can talk about why you don't like it. That's the other thing, is that there are some folks who love the Raimi trilogy who will come after us for hating on it. But at the end of the day, it's a movie that we don't think adds up, and that's fine. And if you love it, great. And both opinions can be valid. Yes. I can like something, we can like something other people don't like, and vice versa. And it's no studio's fault. That's art.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Daredevil. There's a lot of people that just don't like Ben Affleck as Daredevil. Guess what?
That's true.
I enjoyed his leather wearing ass in Daredevil.
That's true. Chafing and all. Speaking of Daredevil, Charlie Cox, again, us manifesting reality that we said that Charlie Cox was going to come back to be Daredevil.
We did that.
Weird.
Again, funny how we're right. Again.
That's right. Marcus, anything else that you'd like to add about Spider-Man 3?
This movie was ass and a half. And every time I watch it, it just becomes more of a cult classic of like, fuck, I can't believe they made this. But it's like, I'm more upset of how they ended Tobey's trilogy.
I am very upset with how they did Tobey.
It's not fair the way that they wrote some of these characters. Obviously, if they could go back, I'm sure that they would and rewrite these characters. And for the time that it came out, we also realized it's over a decade old and we don't know the things that we didn't know back then. But like, going back and looking at these movies, I can rewatch Spider-Man 2 and say, damn, that's still a good movie. Spider-Man 1 and say, damn, that's really a good movie. It's just, this one is just not good. And I'm hoping, the reason we watched this was because looking for a third Spider-Man movie that's coming up, and it's been a while since we've had a third Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why. To have just as many people in it as this one did.
I mean, they doubled the villains. I mean, you had three in the last one, and now you've got potentially 6,
including
you doubled
Doctor
it.
Strange.
Yeah, you doubled it, and that's a lot, and that's going to be a lot, and we're going to have to see how they do it. And I think this is going to be Kevin Feige's opus of like, you all saw Spider-Man 3 and all the problems that there were with so many villains. It's people saying you can't do it, and he said, "Watch me
do it." Yeah.
Watch me do it.
Because you slow built a character out, though. That's the other thing. Is like,
that's true.
You took time with the character.
And again, writing wise, you insisted the story was good instead of the studio insisting things be in there just to be in there. And I appreciate that about their vision, is that they don't put things in there just to check a box. If they're going to be in there, they're going to matter. And I appreciate that.
Please back up Kevin Feige's mind to a damn USB or a
start working on AI so that man can live in a computer somewhere like Arnim Zola. Like, that's what we need.
Who's the backup plan? We figured out, like, God damn, one person can have a hand and give people their freedom, but also be the connecting dot to everybody.
You see the problems that we've had with Black Panther and what happens when your character dies there,
and it's like everybody's kind of looking around like, so
this is all we got, huh? This is it. Jesus. All right.
Rest in peace to Chadwick.
Well, next, as I mentioned, next week we're going to watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2 to check in on that before we get after Spider-Man No Way Home. Marcus, anything that you would like to plug this week?
Of course. It's time. It's here. Everyone, the Noah store is open.
Oh, yeah.
The Noah store is open. The link is in my bio. If you follow __ the mantra or Marcus J. Destin, the link is in the bio right now. The store is open, wide open. It will stay open and it will change over time with different designs and different products will be available. You know what I mean? And, just a good time. Go in there, shop, buy yourself something. Nothing is really too expensive. We really did not want to we really wanted to make this affordable for everybody to just get Noah gear on their body and as a gift. And so if you go to the store, buy something, it's a flat rate shipping of $750, but shipping is also free if you spend over $100. So spend that money, go get that stuff, and buy your family something nice. But the Noah store is finally open.
Congratulations. And I hope nobody tries to be the first person to order anything from the store, because I got you beat by probably about 2 hours. So y'all can fuck yourselves.
I was going through the orders and I said, does this say Douglas W? So what the hell? Douglas already ordered like 2 products. Said it was a family affair. I ain't even mad at it.
That's right. We're mad family affair.
That's my friend.
I have 2 things to plug. The first is the Love Nerds. Go check out the Love Nerds. There's tons of great do-it-yourself things. Again, we're in Christmas potluck season, so go check out some of the recipes that Maggie has up on the Love Nerds. Make those, bring them with you, and they're fun. I would like to plug something that I am doing that is not podcast related, but podcast adjacent. So on December 16th, I will be participating in a Dungeons and Dragons live stream for St. Jude Hospital.
Wait. Start over and put yourself on the main screen. Get me out of here.
I will put myself on the main screen. So on December 16th, I am going to be doing a Dungeons and Dragons live stream to benefit St. Jude Hospital. A friend of the podcast, Chris Schultens, is going to be hosting that. And so we're going to be playing that. It'll be about a 2-3 hour game. It'll be fun. It'll be silly, but we're all doing it to benefit the kids at St. Jude. So if you are inclined to watch, we can work it out there. Or if you don't want to watch, donate to St. Jude. They're a great foundation. They need the money. Let's take care of the kids and make sure that they have a happy holidays as well. So that's what I got. So there you have it.
Beautiful. I love that. Let me know how we can watch and how we can share it. And
I will post something in our socials about how you can watch. So
that'll be good. That's going to be good.
Yeah. But Marcus, we have a 3-step process to success. And our first step is to read a book. Look, there are a lot of books out there. There are audiobooks, there are informational books, there's fiction, nonfiction. Just read one. Pick one, read it. Doesn't have to be long. It can be 20 pages, doesn't matter. But just read a book. Broaden your brain's perspective and ideas by consuming a book. But Marcus, what is our next step to success?
The next step is drink some water.
Yeah,
okay. You got to make sure you're drinking some water. Me personally, I'm going home soon, so I am trying to consume as much water as I possibly can so that I can enjoy on the back end as much as I possibly want to. I don't think that works. That science doesn't really work out that way. But anyway, I'm drinking water. You best believe it. Sometimes I treat myself to Fiji. I have a purifier on my sink because I want the finest stuff going in my body. And Vermilion water just beats the shit out you with all the minerals on the inside. So get a filter, drink some water, drink a Fiji, treat yourself.
Absolutely. And our third step to success is, look, it doesn't matter what multiverse you're in. Wash your ass.
That's not.
And if you're switching multiverses to a different universe, your ass stench is going to follow you. So just make sure you grab some water and you grab some soap and some cloth and wash your ass, because at the end of the day, you don't want to carry that shit with you. Again, we are in holiday potluck season. Nobody wants to be under the mistletoe and wonder if it's the mistletoe that has that smell and they just didn't know, or if it's you. So just wash your ass. It's important that you do so. Yeah. But thanks everybody for coming by for this week's episode. We will be back next week. There are 2 episodes left this season before we take a little bit of a break. So, we are excited, but don't miss them. Join us next week as we talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that we cap off this season with Spider-Man No Way Home. So in the meantime, No Way Home. In the meantime and in the between time, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll catch y'all next week.
Don't go out there making a Spider-Man 3 now.
Don't do that. Bad news.
Oh, fuck yeah.